I'm Alex Lamb, Chief Exec of Lanterne Rouge, and your host here today on The Real Work. I'm an organisational psychologist and professional coach, and I'm personally interested in how careers work. Our mission here is to open access to career success and workplace belonging for everyone through these community conversations. We want to learn and share what drives our personal decisions and how we define and shape our work environments. The Real Work explores how we show up for each other in all manner of professions, unpacking the experiences that shape us and how we can each play a role in designing our future of work. My guest today is Vivian Story. She's the founder and CEO of Soul Story Soul. She's a Korean-Canadian entrepreneur now based in Ho Chi Minh City. Soul Story is a natural skincare company born out of Vivian's own chronic sinus complications and extremely sensitive skin. While she was living in New York City, she started experimenting with beauty products, nutrition, and lifestyle, but she continued to suffer. And after relocating to Southeast Asia, it just got worse. When she got the devastating news that her mum was diagnosed with breast cancer, she took health into her own hands and started researching the products she was putting onto her skin and therefore into her bloodstream. What she found was a cocktail of chemicals, not to mention the fact that most beauty products weren't really inclusive for all skin types or climates. Now, as the founder of Soul Story Skincare, she is dedicated to dermatological safety and beauty results for a broader range of people. So welcome, Vivian. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Really, it's so fantastic to hear your backstory. So our last guest was someone called Dr. Sophie Frost, and she's based in London. She's a researcher and an expert in the role of digital in museums. We had a really great conversation about her career as an academic and as a researcher. And she gave some advice for me to pass on to you for this conversation.
Oh,
so
okay.
She said, go with the flow and embrace the journey. Those were her comments from Sophie to you.
Well, thank you, Sophie.
Absolutely. So, I'd love to hear more about your backstory, but first of all, my mind just goes to why Vietnam? What made this the place that you wanted to settle and start your business?
Well, back in 2008, when I was still in finance, I took a month off and I came to Southeast Asia. I was in the middle of winter and I fell in love with Vietnam. I was walking in, so I first landed in Ho Chi Minh City, and it took a few days to really understand the feeling I was experiencing. I felt comfortable. It was certainly, it's not a perfect place. It's a little gritty, but there's this heartbeat and vibration in the city that you can't really quantify. But it was a feeling that I was trying to figure out. And then a few days later, I recognized that it was the same energy and enthusiasm that I felt growing up as a child in an immigrant community back in Toronto, where our parents and family members were just working hard. Like they were hustling. And many of them had one or two jobs and going to school. And, many of them were well-educated people who their education and skill sets were not considered, they were not, valid in Canada. So they were going to night school and it was a really interesting place to grow up. And, you don't realize how poor you are and you just, you're just a kid. But our parents were working really hard and it was very diversified. And that kind of extends into my brand with Soul Story, how it was really important to make sure it was inclusive for any skin type and skin complexion. And so when I came in 2008, I remember just, by the end of the trip, I thought, oh, it would be such a dream to come here one day and live here. I didn't have the confidence or the courage to take that big leap of faith. And then, after 10 years, I settled and I realized that you have to be really careful what you dream for or what you wish for. Because 10 years later, I was...
Well, someone like you will make it happen. Yeah. So it sounded like it just really resonated from a character and the people around you, just having that energy of being proactive and, as you said, hustling, but really working hard and working against the grain. I can see why that resonates from a startup perspective, that kind of energy around
Yeah.
you.
And there is like a familiarity with Korea as well as Vietnam. Like they both went through a war.
Yeah.
They were poverty stricken. People were starving. My family left like a war torn country, and they
Yeah.
were just so happy to get to Canada and go to school and you know, have an opportunity to prosper.
Yeah.
And Korea's come a long way, and I feel the same energy and drive that's here in Vietnam. And there was no sense of entitlement because, I mean, there isn't a whole lot of resources to work with. Like, you don't get social services or the basics. So you have to
Yeah.
work really, really hard.
Yeah. And rely on your
Yeah.
family and rely on yourself to drive forward. And so tell us about growing up
Yeah.
in Canada. It sounds like you had this consciousness, growing consciousness of the immigrant experience and the you know, and the just the way you grew up. You mentioned that you maybe didn't have as much resource at the time, but it
Mm.
sounded like there was a lot of role modeling. And yeah, just tell me, what was that like?
Well, I'm from I was brought up from a single mom and my
Yeah.
grandparents. So my brother and I were very fortunate. We had a lot of love. We didn't have a whole lot in terms of like, you know, toys or great vacations or anything like that. Our vacation was like, let's go to the summer amusement park. And, you know, there was like summer events and, or like Central Island, you take a ferry to, you know, the island off of the city.
Yeah.
And but my family was, they really put strong values because they were from a well-to-do family that lost everything. And so my grandmother, who I remember her telling me things like, what was it? Just because you're poor right now doesn't mean that this is your destiny.
Mm,
And she would say stuff like, you're really lucky you were born in Canada. You have so much more opportunity than your mother did or I did, and so you're going to make the best of it.
yeah.
But at the same time, she was like, learn how to cook. Like, you're going to have to be like, who's going to marry you if you don't know how to cook?
Mm.
And
So there was an optimism, but also some traditional elements to the message as well.
yeah. And then she's like, look after your brother. You're the oldest. You have a responsibility. And then, you know, my cousins eventually came along and it was like, look after your cousins. And so it was like traditional, and then take the opportunity and, you know, run with it. So it was a
Mm,
little confusing at times, but it was a really, I mean, I'm really proud to be Canadian.
mm.
I just, I, I love being Canadian, but I also love being Korean as well.
Yeah,
So
you're
my
both.
heritage. Yeah, and I was really fortunate to grow up in a city where it's very multicultural. Different religions, different nationalities, color complexions. It was a place where, you know, you tried your best to assimilate and yet celebrate diversity.
Yeah, Canada, the mindset of Canadians is admirable. I think it's my dad was born in Canada. My husband's Canadian. You know, by default, my little boy is Canadian as well. I have my Canadian citizenship too, and despite not having lived or grown up there, I have this sense of the Canadian psyche. Like you're saying, there's a celebration, but also a real yeah, just recognition of the quality of diversity. I feel like they've completely assimilated it into the national kind of yeah, the national psyche. So it's what a lot of other countries and companies at the moment are actually, you know, aiming for. Canada's
Yeah.
achieved it.
But I really, I do have a great appreciation for Canadian values. And you see that when you're living abroad, which you have yourself, and you see that with your husband and then hopefully with your son as he
Yeah.
gets older. And so I'm really proud of that part. And but growing up wasn't always easy. Like I started working when I was 10.
Yeah.
I was
What were
quite
you
tall.
doing? What was your first job?
Um, so my mom was able to save up some money and she opened up a donut shop.
It's
And
very
it was
Canadian.
before the
Yeah.
and it was before the big coffee boom, like, big cafes and all that. And so it was like the only coffee shop between two subway stops. So it was quite busy. So I worked there like every day after school, on the weekends, summer holidays, and and I knew by the time I was 8 that we were poor, and that we need to get out of the situation that we were in. And the neighborhood that we were growing up was actually getting quite dangerous, and
Mm.
it was becoming quite challenging. And so my mother worked every day for 5 years. We celebrated Christmas by a donut shop, like, a full deep clean. And we were able to get out after a few years. My mom bought a house in a nice neighborhood. And my mom wanted to make sure that we got out of the area by the time we became teenagers, like
Right.
before high school,
Mm.
because she wanted us to have better influences and make it to university.
Yeah.
And so, I started really early in terms of learning how to manage my time and juggle school and work. Um, and so and also manage money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that leads you into your first career in the finance sector. So how did that life, that story of growing up and being so dedicated and diligent, how did that land you into that first phase of your career?
So I didn't have any connections to get into finance, and so I started off as a temp, like just going in as like a receptionist administrator, and I got hired after the third day. They really liked me. I was like a keener. I was like the first to get things done, and because I was really enthusiastic and I really liked the energy. I really wanted to be a part of it. And from there, I just worked my way up. And then by the end, when I left, I was on a trading desk doing institutional equity sales. And so it was a really incredible experience. I don't regret ever being in it, and it taught me different skill sets, and also gave me a lot of confidence to go out there and meet random people. And
Yeah.
that's how I started Soul Story, because I also didn't have any connection in the beauty industry in Korea. But then, through meeting people and with the help of some family members, I was able to, knock on some doors
Yeah.
and do my own due diligence, like research.
It's a great story. It reminds me of this saying that says, like, a bird on a branch doesn't worry about the branch snapping because it trusts in its ability to fly. And so
Yeah.
because you worked out, I've got these skills to just make hay, make things work. Maybe it's not just about the leg up or who or the perfect direct pathway, because I can rely on my diligence, or I can rely on my my hard work. You've
Yeah.
definitely been able to demonstrate it.
When I meet with younger people and they're like, I want to start my own business, but I don't know how. And I tell them, like, okay, well, you're working in a corporation, learn as much as you can, because
Yeah.
there are going to be tasks, or you're going to be working with people you may not necessarily get along with or respect, but you're going to have to, like, develop skills and force yourself to cooperate and grow, and then with that you can start your own business one day.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so what else did you feel like you took away from that phase of your career? You said confidence and this ability to work things out. What were the lessons that you particularly?
Well, one of the biggest lessons I learned was and I think this is like a very developed country, or actually it applies in the superficial world. And I thought that having nice things e- equaled happiness, and having promotions and having a certain career would equal happiness and wellness. And it didn't. It didn't
Mm,
fulfill me. And initially, you know, like when you are able to buy nice things, because I was, you know, I grew up underprivileged. I thought, you know, the first things I bought was like nice bedding, nice towels. And it sounds ridiculous, but like these were things that I wanted to have. And
yeah,
then after a
symbolic.
while, yeah, and after a while, you know, the allure subsided, and I felt like there was more that I was looking for that would fulfill me, and it wasn't just about monetary or materialistic
Mm,
things around me. And I wanted to create something that was healthier. And it's really interesting because someone would say, like, you know, why did you decide to become an entrepreneur? I never even considered myself as like an entrepreneur when I started Soul Story. I got so involved and passionate about creating something that was healthy and offering it to not just myself but to the people around me and people who wanted like a healthier lifestyle.
mm. Yeah, so you were really compelled, and obviously we could hear from your bio the personal journey that took you there. So it was less about the kind of entrepreneur's journey and more about fulfilling a need that you had for yourself that you could see would benefit other people as well. Um,
Exactly.
so how did that tinker away in your mind in terms of getting to the point where you actually made the decision to leave the first chapter, move on to the next chapter? Can you talk us through? It sounds like you were just explaining there was a passion, there was an urge, there was a drive to be purposeful in what you were doing, but was there any logic or, you know, key moments that you can explain behind that?
My health was deteriorating. Like
Yeah.
part of it was because I was so unhappy, and the stress of the environment that I was in. So it just chipped away, and then eventually, like, it really affected my immune system, and I just wasn't able to bounce back as quickly.
Mm,
And I remember when I was 15, 16, I really wanted to get into interior design. Like, I
mm,
really like arts, and I find it like very therapeutic. And I had an opportunity to go to New York and go to Parsons for interior design, and I fulfilled that dream as an adult. And during that time, um, I allocated a lot of my time to eating healthy, clean eating, um, you know, exercising, being active. And still I was, you know, struggling with my sinus and skin sensitivity. And and then at the time I was in a relationship, and so we decided after New York and after my schooling that we were going to take some time off and start a family. And Southeast Asia seemed like a good place. You know, we were both tired of winter.
yeah.
We're like, okay, we're done with winter. And I also want to get closer to my heritage, just
Mm,
understand. It was a little confusing at times growing up in an immigrant household where I had these like very old traditional values of how to be as a woman, you
mm,
know, be nurturing, be motherly. And then at the same time, it's like, be strong, be
yeah.
independent, you know, be tough. Um, and so it's like, how do I have that balance
How
between
do
the
you be
two?
both? Mm,
And so that was a struggle, but I really wanted to understand the root of, you know, these like really strong values that I had that I couldn't shake. And then when I got to Asia, and obviously Korea had winter, so I was like, not going there. I you know, spent time in Thailand. I didn't really like it, so it's a beautiful country, but it wasn't a good fit for me. And I started spending more time in Korea, and I discovered skincare. And it was so much gentle on my skin, like I wasn't having the same effects. And uh, I just started my personality is just, I start researching all the
You went
different
deep.
ingredients.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I wanted to start selling the products in Thailand and actually all over Southeast Asia. And because I was confident, and I thought, well, I'm just going to have meetings with these big corporations, and I would actually get in, and they'd be like, all right, you're here. And I'd be like, I want to sell your, products, but can you reformulate them? And I don't want these ingredients in it. And they're like,
Mm,
well, how much are you willing to order? Like, we'll start with 5,000. And they're like, no. And so then I realized I would have to do it on my own.
right. Yeah.
And so I locked myself up in the guest room, and I slept with the laptop literally beside me. And every like 3-4 hours, I would get up and start working away. And I did research on 342 companies initially.
Wow.
And I narrowed it down to 50 and then 12. And then I did my due diligence. I flew to Korea, and I met with them, and I went to the facilities. I had no idea. I just only read up on what I could do. And I talked to as many people as I could possibly, speak to. And then I just like figured it out. And then I realized in the end that there are certain standards. It's called CGMP, Certified Good Manufacturing Practice. And there's less than 50 companies that have that in Korea. And there's about 5,000 cosmetic companies in Korea. And I was like, if I didn't have to do 342,
Yeah. But you don't know that at the outset. Yeah.
companies. So then I was like, okay, well, and so now I have I have a better understanding of what I'm doing. But I enjoyed it. It was it was a new industry. And for me, it wasn't about having white skin. It was about having healthier skin. And when you are feeling healthy and you look healthy, you're more confident, and then you could go about your day and also pursue your dreams.
Yeah. Oh, it's literally how you face the world, isn't it? So interesting. So it sounds like you had already made the decision to leave finance, and there was the winter piece, there was the family piece, the relationship piece, and it was so that's when you landed in Southeast Asia, and that's when you landed on skincare in terms of the order of events. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and then you went really deep. So now, how long has it been since you've started Soul Story?
So I started back in 2014, like at the end of 2014, and then I launched in 2015. And then we rebranded and launched in 2018. And then the first product under Soul Story, Soul, was Sun Warrior sunscreen. And
Fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, so the goal was basically to make sure that these products were going to be suitable for this type of climate where it's hot, humid, and we experience rainy season. A lot of the formulations I felt were factoring in 4 seasons, so winter. So quite a few products that I was using before arriving to Southeast Asia were quite heavy and thick.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't suitable, and it was frustrating. And obviously sunscreen is essential for anyone, anywhere really. Even if you're working indoors, if there's a window, you need protection from
Mm-hmm.
UVA rays, which causes about 90% of signs of aging, and also protects you from cancer, like
Mm-hmm.
skin
Yeah.
cancer. Yeah.
And so now that you're these several years in, and I assume, the entrepreneur's journey, you can never sum it up. Or maybe you can, towards the next couple of decades when you're reflecting back on it. But are there any major moments or sort of critical experiences in this entrepreneur's journey where you've thought, oh, am I on the right track? Or you've questioned, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely this year
Yeah.
during the lockdown, the first wave that we experienced. We're Vietnam's actually doing quite well. We have actually 21 days. I just saw it this morning, 21 consecutive days of no new cases. Yeah.
So you're
I mean,
almost out of the
yeah, so
woods.
yes, for now.
Mm,
Um, and I guess, the country works collectively to, we follow the rules. It was hard initially. And even I thought that the country was overreacting by, shutting down the schools so early. This is like early this year. But they clearly did the right things
mm.
to help the country. So during the first lockdown, I sat there thinking, my God, what have I done?
How did it impact you? I mean, beyond being locked down, what did you see in terms of sales or
Yeah, so
digital conversations?
sales went down during the lockdown, and uh, we were close to pre-COVID levels back in July. But then at the end of July, there was a second wave that came about, and we got hit hard again in August. And so it's hard. It's hard to raise capital. Like this year, it was a year that I wanted to raise capital, and that's on hold. And obviously, I'm not meeting the targets, the goals for 2020. And that was disheartening for me. And I only in the last few weeks have accepted it is what it is. But I'm finding new ways and yeah, just
Yeah,
juggling. Yeah.
completely understand. I think it's everybody's seeing it in different. I mean, unless you're selling work from home office furniture or something that's become a boom sector, it's I think a lot of consumers are probably just taking a wait and see approach of how do I, not knowing what comes out, how do I be maybe a bit conservative with the spending? So anything that's discretionary or more luxury space, I think has probably been, part of the consideration for people. Can you tell us about your consumers? Like, where are they based and who are they?
So, majority of my customers are Soul Story is available in Korea, Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam,
Okay.
and in Canada as well, but not officially. um,
Just
and
through your family's
yeah, like
house, or yeah.
they look after the shipping, and because we do get orders in Canada and the U.S. And it's interesting because I think that even though it's expensive to operate in North America, there's definitely a bigger spending power. And in Vietnam, they're catching up, like they're getting there. Like, people start by eating organic food or healthier food options, and then they'll get into personal care and skincare, but they're not there yet, not everyone. And then, of course, the wealthy, they want the luxury products, even though it may not work on their skin. They believe like that's what's important. Where, the more mature markets, they understand that it's not just, the luxury brands that it's going to, make your skin healthy or better. So
You
they're
need a
much more
fit for you.
open-minded. Exactly. Yeah. And also like people who don't really necessarily care about whitening. Like my products are not about whitening. It's about, brightening and anti-aging and providing a good like skin moisture and protecting your skin barrier. So my customers are the main focus because, I've been focusing on Vietnam is our Vietnamese women.
Okay.
And then the expat community. And that's
Okay. And
growing
you
because they can't
mostly,
travel.
are you selling online through your own website, or are you retailing? Yeah. How
Yeah,
are you selling?
so most of it is online. Most of
Mm-hmm.
our sales are online. Most of our marketing is online. So that's great. But unfortunately, with people being concerned about their jobs or the uncertainty of the future, they've cut back
Yeah.
on spending. So that's where it's been hard.
Yeah. No, exactly. And yeah, I mean, we can only hope and trust, I think, that that it rebounds as people get more certainty in their jobs and their surroundings, and the media, that the news that they're getting as well. So you mentioned how this impacts your ability to raise, in terms of demonstrating the sales traction, but I assume as well in terms of just the capital and the conversations that investors are willing to have in the market at the moment too. So what are you finding, or what were you finding when you were intending to raise this year, in terms of, I guess, like the process, the ease of conversations, the receptiveness from investors?
Well, in what I've noticed in Southeast Asia, I mean, you're in California, so it's very tech driven. A lot of investors are interested in tech oriented companies. And my business is clearly not tech. I mean, we're involved in online selling, but it's not a e-commerce third-party website and business. And so that's one of the challenges that I had. And so they're looking for growth. That's just not, it just doesn't happen with health and beauty, wellness.
Yeah.
And so that's challenging. The other thing was, I mean, being a female founder, and we all know the data, and I'm happy to be a female, and I'm I celebrate it every day.
Yeah.
But to be a female founder and to raise capital is hard. It's challenging, and the data supports it. And I don't know if it would be easier if I had a co-founder that was a male, but I'm sure it would have been a little easier.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we're all speaking about it and pointing it out as an obvious, as you say, the data plays it out. And I even saw DocSend, one of the online, tools where you can upload your deck and you send it to the VC, and you can see which slides are they stopping on and how long do they spend on each side. They actually have the data now to show that across all the decks that are sent through DocSend, as soon as the viewer sees that it's female founder, that they just stop looking. So it's, to me, I mean, there's all this rhetoric in the market about we need to support female founders. Here's the return on their businesses. Here's how better run they are as businesses, which may or may not be true, but there's so much emphasis. And yet when the facts play it out, it really just makes me question. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because for our business, I realized that the way that we started our business, because we started with services, we started in Southeast Asia, all of these things just weren't VC friendly. That it wasn't what they were looking for. And so if I was starting a business designed to get VC funding, then I would have started it another way. But because I started the business that I wanted to run and the contribution that we knew we could make in the market, and then we retroactively went out to try to find funding and realized, okay, even though we have a HR tech product, we've still got services wrapped around it. And so there's some hesitation out there. So I don't know that it's that VCs aren't willing to invest in female founded businesses. I think it's that the type of businesses that we want to run are clashing against the type of financing that they want to do. So I don't know if you've got any reflections on that from your experience.
Well, that's definitely the case. When you meet with the potential investors, and especially if they have like a tech background, they are looking and they're expecting the type of growth that technology, if they succeed, would provide. And they are looking for these unicorns. The brand, the products are unicorns to me, but not to a VC standard. So
yeah. It's so fun, and it's amplified even more so here in San Francisco. It's like even angel investors are looking for unicorns. And you're like, come on, seriously, like I want to run a great business. Yes, we want to grow. Heaven forbid we get to that size, but where does it come from being profitable and having a good, a contribution to the community and to society and to employing people? Obviously, that VCs aren't a charity, so you're not expecting to run a business that doesn't create returns. But I think there's now this expectation that just, how many businesses can actually get to that status?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of disheartening. And so what's your approach then? Are you thinking, okay, pause, get through however long this period is, refocus on your sales, and then reconsider going out for funding? Or have you decided to take a different approach?
I'm, I, well, the plan to expand is on hold, obviously.
Yeah.
And actually, in the last few weeks, I'm reevaluating. I'm still making some decisions, like big decisions, and I don't want to give up. Like, bottom line, I'm not going to give up. So
Yeah.
I'm going to stay afloat. I'm going to continue what I'm doing, and I have just really, rather than putting big capital into marketing, I'm just doing more um, in-house
Guerrilla style. Yeah.
marketing.
Makes sense.
And yeah, and just, and I think that also understanding the market. So people are concerned about spending. So I'm, working on finding, I mean, I also have like at home, do it yourself facial exercises that are, yoga facial exercises, and
Cool.
natural remedies to help with acne breakouts. For example, like there's like a term, acne, or even maskne, acne caused by wearing face masks. Wearing face masks is something that we need to do to get through this pandemic, but it's causing havoc on our skin. So, we're sharing
Ah,
tips and ideas. And these are things that I'm trying to do. So it's like, I'm going to continue adding value to my community, and cut back
yeah.
on a whole
Just
lot.
hunker down. Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense. Not knowing where
And
the
really,
finish line is either. It's I think you have to. And just hearing the story that brought you to here, you had so many inspired moments where you had that rush of energy and you went deep and you were sleeping with your laptop and et cetera, et cetera. To give up at a moment like this is like, everything's brought you to this moment, all those inspired experiences. So I like to hear the fact that you're just bunkering down.
yeah. And it's really interesting because, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, you understand that when you go in, you are taking on risk.
Yeah.
And obviously you've made the decision that you are going to take on these risks and you're going to move forward. But, and then you hear in the background, okay, there could be like a pandemic. But because we never experienced it before, we're like, okay, in the background, it could possibly happen. And but we're not going to just sit on our hands and just wait for it to happen. And then voila,
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
And so it's just another added risk that we were not prepared for. I wasn't, for sure. And then
I don't think you're alone.
I've just
Yeah.
learned to, with my team, to just, yeah, continue with
Yeah.
fortitude.
Keep
Yeah,
going.
keep
And so
going.
where are you getting your energy from at a moment like this? How do you restore or take care of
Well,
yourself?
so I've been really, I'm really big on like, so part of this whole health and wellness journey, and I know it's been quite popular with the whole phrase of health and wellness, but I believe there's like 4 pillars when it comes to our overall health. So one is obviously, what we eat. And so I'm eating as clean as possible. And then the other thing would be like fitness. The third would be mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
meditation, just trying to be more self-aware.
Yeah.
If I have a negative thought, I'm like, wait a minute, no, we're not going there. Like, bring it back. And so that's something that has been a little consuming because there are a lot of negative thoughts
Yeah.
on it.
It's a lot of work
And
to catch each one.
and as especially growing up in a immigrant household where you don't get praised like there are a lot of negative drivers. So I'm guilty of it, where I will put myself down and then I'm like, no, that is not going to help me right now.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't work. So let's bring it back. So meditation, healthy mindset, and then just staying away from people that are negative. Like if
Yeah.
they are, yeah, I need to be really, really mindful of who are around me.
Yeah.
And the fourth thing would be obviously what we use. So personal care and skincare, which I've been doing, so that hasn't changed. So these four pillars are essential for our overall health. And so I've been really trying to be as healthy and mindful in terms of who I am and what I'm doing on a day to
Mm.
day.
I like hearing that you've actually got those four pillars, because there's a little bit more of simple and elegant and beautiful in the way that you put them together, but it's a framework for saying, okay, which of my pillars needs a little bit of reinforcement right now, which one is shorter than the others, or not as strong as the others. And I do think moments like this, if you've been building those pillars before we got to these moments, then at least you know where your resources are. Whereas I think a lot of people have come into these troubling times without that kind of framework, or without the resources. They're now trying to scramble to work it out, or just to move through. So how did you come across the four pillars? Was that something you thought of yourself? Did you read about it, or is this through experience?
I learned along the way because I realized what my lifestyle and like it wasn't sustainable back 10 years ago.
Mm.
And I had to make some changes, and I did. I made drastic changes. And then obviously the first thing is fitness. Um, and there's more to than just doing yoga and being fit. And so I realized, okay, that clearly is not going to solve all my health problems. And so then, I got into meditation, like mindful meditation, and learning, and then getting into therapy and understanding the root of my problems,
Mm.
and working it through. And we're all working progress. and
Absolutely. Yeah.
and then the other part would be our diet. So I say, yes, the products are great, but also, like, if you're not a vegetarian, have more broth soup. It's great, like not just over like for your immune system, but also for producing collagen. Um, the type of
You can
highly
get vegan
fermented foods.
collagen now too. Did you know that's one of the most Googled things on Google? It's a trending topic on Google at the moment, is vegan collagen. So
Oh, I
you
did
can
not
have
know that. I
vegan
need to
broth. Yeah.
inquire about it. Okay. And then yeah, just eating healthier foods, like rich foods that are nutritional, and helps with our immune system, and all that will help with our skin and our
Mm-hmm.
mood, and cutting back on sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um,
So
I
the
have
total
cut back
system.
on coffee, but I love coffee. Like, I'm just drinking that right now because it's
Yeah.
my morning. um, yeah, so I mean, these things, I think it was like a evolved, because I realized that it wasn't just one that was going to be sustainable. I needed those four.
Yeah, it's a total system, isn't it? You're right. And the reason I ask is, like, we do a lot of work in corporates where, senior leaders are saying, okay, and it's natural, even with the best practices, we're all under extraordinary times right now. So the most mindful, healthy, fit person could still, stumble. Um, but definitely, like, we're finding ourselves having these conversations of, how are you sleeping? What is your sleep hygiene? Are you putting yourself to bed? Do you have 3 exercise moments a week, or, like, at a minimum? And it feels in some ways kind of, motherly or something. It doesn't come across the right way in a corporate environment, but yet that it just comes so much back to, do you have those fundamental balance points in your life? Because no amount of business strategy or education sitting over the top of that is going to help you if you just didn't eat your breakfast. Like, it's a
Yeah, and I also think that it's important as business owners, like we need, like for me at least, like my identity, my whole life has been my business.
Yeah.
And I realized during the pandemic that I am more than just my business. And when people ask me now, it's like, well, how are you? It's like, well, personally, I'm doing well. And I am. You know, I'm healthy. My family and friends are healthy. My friends' families are healthy. We're getting through this. Some people are having more difficulties than others, but overall, we're all alive and we're healthy and safe. And no one's starving or homeless. And so, yes, I am well.
Yeah.
Business, on the other hand, is another story. And so,
Tough. Yeah.
you know, that's another thing where my identity is not just soul story, it's Vivian, like, and my tribe, my family, my friends. And um, so I have to be extremely grateful. And
Such an important lesson. Yeah, because
yeah,
you're right, you can get enmeshed so easily, especially when I reflect the fact that you have your family name in your business name. So there is a meshing of identity there. But do you think there's any element of like your family heritage in the story of like, you know, this is just a moment in time. you're as you said, your grandmother said to you, you're poor right now, but that's not your future. Like maybe that's a really nice seedling that's somehow like planted in you.
yeah, I mean, it, it's a, I mean, I don't know how to phrase it the best way, but at least for me, and I have a few childhood friends that have always said that I have never taken the easiest route
Mm,
in life, and things have worked out because I've taken that leap of faith and risk, and I wasn't afraid of hard work, and I feel like this is part of this journey,
yeah.
and I know that in the end, as long as I give it 110%, even during the days where it looks very bleak, um, I know that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I will be
Yeah.
okay. I like that as a mantra. I might steal it. I also have a belief that I will be okay. It just you sit there at the moment and you're like, oh, I wish this moment would hurry up and pass because it's
And people say, like, you know, oh, we just have to get to 2020. But then I realize, actually, you know what? 2021's it's not looking that promising either.
no, there's no magic line. I realized the other day with my sister as well. I was thinking, I just can't wait. And she said, you know, nothing happens when the clock strikes midnight. It's not going to automatically be like, oh, that year's done. Like, I think that is a challenge. We don't know where the finish line is of this. And it's
Because I
probably going to
kept
be a
saying,
graduation out. Yeah.
exactly. And I'm laughing because the other day I was like, I don't know why I keep saying I can't wait until 2020 is over, because I think that in January I was like, okay, stop saying that. There is no
Yeah.
finish line.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
true, and it mentally is. I mean, it's a false finish line, which gives you false hope.
Yeah,
um,
and I think of my mom, like
yeah,
she was on her own with two children in a foreign country. None of her education was relevant. So she persevered, and
yeah,
she's done well for herself, and through her hard work and her will. And she had plans, and those
yeah,
plans didn't work out the way she
yeah,
thought, but it worked out in a different way. And
yeah,
I have, and I feel that, you know, I am controlling of my business. And yet I know that there's things that I cannot control. And so if this is not going to work out, something else will.
yeah.
But
So long
until
as you
then,
keep putting the effort in, yeah.
yeah.
It's a good thing to mention your mum. It does sound like there's so much role modeling that you have from your family. So when it comes to being a founder, who do you look up to from a business perspective? Do you have any mentors or other female founders around you, or founders in general, that you can learn from?
I'm actually, that's one of the, aside from raising capital, having a female founder, a mentor, would have been wonderful to have,
Mm,
especially in the beauty, health, and wellness space. Unfortunately, I don't really have one, but I do have a very wonderful group of other female founders that I have met along the way, and just really good people, like
mm,
just solid friends. And that's, you know, something that I have a great appreciation for over the last 5 years. How fortunate I've been, because I've made some drastic lifestyle changes over the years, and so along that journey, I've had really great support from a community of women, and they're on, many of them are on their second or third act, so they're,
mm,
you know, they've worked for big corporations, they're done, they want to start something on their own,
yeah.
and we're all, you know, in the same, different industries, different stages, but all in the same boat, I guess.
Yeah. And what is the boat? What do you think is driving that tribe?
Ooh, determination,
Mm,
passion, um, striving for something better. Like we're
mm,
all, there isn't one person that I know that's not contributing by adding value to society. You know,
yeah.
we are in our own way providing value added
Mm.
to
And so do you think
humanity.
is there something about those big corporates, you know, if you say there's this trend of these self-determined, driven, passionate women who are making societal contributions and they just got fed up with a corporate wherever they were, is there something about traditional business structures that just don't work for that kind of inspired woman? Like, could you see any way that those women would be making their contributions if they were still inside a big business, or is it actually part of having a breakout for them to really fulfill their contribution?
I think that, I mean, we are seeing that right now where a lot of people are forced to work at home because,
Mm,
you know, during the lockdown. And then companies have realized that employees' productivity levels are higher when they're not, you know, punching in the clock and punching out and showing up to the office. And, you know, one of my biggest challenge for me was the work environment. I found it
mm,
really challenging. The stress was more the work environment than the job. Like the job itself was quite stressful, but it was
mm,
manageable because it was rewarding and satisfying. And so I think that there is a part of it. And if you're not good at office politics, like I'm not a good politician. You know, what you see is what you're going to get. And I'm authentic, so I'm not going to sugarcoat things, and I'm also, excuse my language, I don't know if I could say it, but I don't
go
kiss
ahead.
ass.
Mm,
I just don't kiss ass. And so I think there are certain people's personalities and characteristics where if you're not a good politician, you just won't succeed, even though you're
mm,
smart and you have good skill sets, you just don't succeed. And it's also the type of industry you're in, right? As a woman, like if you're in finance or even like in the science and R&D side, it is challenging because there's not enough of them.
yeah. And so you're
Yeah.
always forging, and I always think of that in the like in the most recent desk that you had before you wrapped up your finance career. Who was around you when you looked to the left and to the right? Were there other women there, or were you in a?
There were a few.
Mm,
They weren't a lot, and they were, and that was another thing. Like I didn't have the most positive experience working with other women
mm,
in finance. I mean, I made some wonderful friends that I'm still friends with, but many of them were pretty competitive. They saw each other as threats as opposed to like helping each other or having each other's back.
mm,
So that was quite frustrating and disappointing. And so I wanted to make sure that whatever I was doing in my next, you know, I guess my next chapter, which I'm in right now, was going to be gender friendly
yeah.
and not just, you know, I'm not a, I wanted to make sure that was going to be fair to women and men. And I have a good friend who's now a co-founder and an advisor for Soul Story, but she's a co-founder for the Beehive pop-ups in Saigon. And we together organized these pop-ups because we both needed, we didn't want a brick and mortar store, but we wanted to market our products so that more people had access to it. And so we did like a pop-up. We asked 3 other female founders, and we had this really great turnout, like about 70, I think there was close to 100 people at my Julie's place. And
That's
it was
amazing.
like, and then other women who were, you know, had their own businesses want to be a part of it. And now we host them. Like now this year we've only had one because of the COVID. Between the first wave and the second wave. We're a little hesitant to do the second one because we don't know when the third wave is going to happen. And we just don't want anyone to be infected at one of our events. It would just, and then to have critical health issues, it would be very disheartening.
No, you'd hate to be the source of it. Absolutely.
Yes.
But it's so interesting to hear, because like what you're sort of explaining, and this is my way of thinking about it, is if we're saying these female founders, those traditional big businesses, whatever it was about the infrastructure just didn't work for them, and so they've broken out. But what I hear you saying is that actually where we female founders are recreating a new structure, it might not be this formalized institution, so to speak, in terms of a business entity, but you are getting together with other women and creating moments and networks and ways of doing business that work for you. And so it's and you're using the word pop-up, you know, that might be the way to explain it, but actually sounds like there's more than just the pop-up moment. And there's a lot happening around that.
A community. Yeah. And we also want to make sure that we were going to have it diversified. So it's like, we want local women who are Vietnamese, local women, and then also international people who are from abroad, like myself. And we, you know, try to keep it 50-50. And we want to make sure that we could help each other out.
Yeah, that's incredible. So good to hear. I'm glad that I know you now as well. I consider you part of my, although I can't join the pop-ups in Vietnam, but I'd love to be a part of the community, as you said. It's, I don't know, and maybe that's part of the COVID innovation, is how these things become digital as well. And
and I hope that it's an opportunity for corporations to reevaluate, reassess, and decide, like, do we need that traditional culture where you go into an office space, and then like how much of it is wasted? And it's not just time, it's energy, like people's energy. And you know, over the years, people are talking about, like, you know, being organized and managing your time. But for me, I realized I can work long hours. It's managing energy. You know, where am I allocating my energy? And I'm being much more mindful about that. And so so hopefully it'll make it easier so people don't leave, and they, you know, they could be part of a corporation and in a bigger team
but in a different way, rethinking it, redesigning it. And it's not just the physicality of it, as you say, it's like, how do people use their energy, but how do they come together and come apart when it's more dynamic. I think I still hear a lot of people clinging to you know, when I'm there in the office, I can build rapport, I can bump into people in the hallway, I can go out for a coffee, and those things exist for sure. Like, there's, you know, you can't beat seeing someone in person, can you? But this concept of needing to be physically parked there all the time and turn up at a moment and leave at a moment, it just seems somehow juvenile to me now. I look back at it and I think, and I get it, why organization, you know, you're in a contract with an organization, so of course they want to know where you are and what you're doing. So I think that we're going to see this shift to, yes, maybe more dynamic ways of people working and coming in and out, but maybe like a rebalancing of how the surveillance, so to speak, works, or how the visibility works and that'll be a new, you know, we've been talking about warehouse employees having wearables so that company knows, you know, how much distance are you doing and how often are you working and packing boxes and whatnot. But now, like for knowledge workers to start thinking that they're being observed and tracked and monitored for productivity as well is somehow scary or offensive. It's coming up in some of our conversations. And so I think people are they're wanting to work from home, but not willing to give up the privacy that they felt they had, even though they were sitting in the office. So it's a strange new mashup.
Well, it's interesting how like the whole concept of technology, you know, it initially started because it was supposed to help us. But is it really, I mean, it is. I mean, for example, I would have never been able to start my own brand if I didn't have social media. I didn't even open up a Facebook account until 2012. Like, I was a late bloomer when it came to
a personal one.
media.
I think that's when I stopped using it. Yeah.
And then, you know, coming to Vietnam, everyone uses Facebook. It's essential. And so for me to stay in touch with people and grow my business, it's through Facebook. And I just I thought it was funny how I was like, wow, you know, things that I wasn't really comfortable with being a part of, I am now full on.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I never really liked to be the face of the brand. I tried really hard initially not to be the face of the brand, but then realized that I have to, because I need to share my passion. I need people to understand why it's available and what it does and how it adds benefits into someone's overall well-being. And, you know, I've hired people like KOLs, people talk about influencers, and they're wonderful. I've had some really incredible influencers work with Soul Story, but it's just the message, the consistent message is not, you know.
Yeah. No one's going to represent it the way you do.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, with that whole technology part and tracking and I guess the whole AI, it's like a double-edged sword.
Oh, for sure. So much advantage and so much to think about ethically and personally. And yeah, that's the next wave. Let's see.
Yeah,
Let's see what happens.
It is. But it's also humbling. Like this whole pandemic has been humbling because, you know, we're always trying to find better ways, faster ways, quicker ways, you know. But in actual fact, like humanity, we're fragile.
Oh, completely. And so many people say, you know, COVID's forced the digital transformation that people have been talking about for years and decades. But I actually think it's created like a polarization of people wanting to double down on technologies and efficiencies so that they can do their work, but a real reinvestment in the things that make us human: friendships, family, as you say, health. I just think people are so much more conscious of, you know, can I live this way? Can I work this way? Is it worth it? Should I be even, you know, whereas before they might have been one foot in front of the other, plodding through whichever way they'd kind of landed. It was this big reset of, no, actually I'm a human and I can't work 22 hours a day, you know, boss, or I can't, you know, so it's, you mentioned the word silver linings, I think before. I hope that this is the silver lining that comes out of it is, yes, we have better technology for the things that we want to be convenient, and we get to be more human as well.
Yes.
But
yeah.
Let's see. That might be my best of both worlds, fictional thinking.
It's positive too. It's positive, and we need that wherever we could have a positive attitude, not blind, not naive, blind, positive attitude, but realistic ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are essential, especially.
It's a choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually that's a very good point there. Choice. You know, we could choose to make the best of the situations. Yeah. And sometimes the situation's not great, but you got to make the best of it. Yeah. I'm laughing. Like my laugh is sort of like, what else? Am I going to cry? I'm not going to cry about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's the only choice you do have, because we can't choose to, you know, it kind of riffs on this idea you were saying before about control. Like, we can't control a whole hell of a lot at the moment, but control the controllables. The one thing you can control is your outlook and your as you said, being realistic, understanding the risks, but also choosing to be positive. Like, in a world where everything else is taken, and look, as you've pointed out, we have our family, we have our health, you have to remember how important the things are that we do have. So I don't also want to sound like, the desperation is somehow, of an order of magnitude, but you have those moments when you think, what else could happen? This year just can't get any worse. The only thing I can do is choose to, take control. And there's a lot of research around that from the Auschwitz concentration camps, actually, like the people who survived. And I know that sounds very morbid, but people who survived, and there was one doctor in particular called Dr. Frankel, who was a psychologist, and he was able to observe the people in the camps and think about it from a personality and a character and an outlook perspective. And he was able to journal on his life experience of, being incredibly emaciated and dehumanized, and coming through it to the other side and saying the people who survived were the people who chose within their mind that there was nothing that anyone could do to hurt them. Even in a horrible situation like that, when you hurt my body and you kill my belief in humanity, you don't know what I'm saying to myself in the deepest, darkest part of my mind. And so that's where I have a choice. That's where I have agency, and I can, I can prosper in my own mind. So I think if he can do that, then little old me in my my work from home situ can do it as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we all started to stay home and in the lockdown, and it made you realize how much we relied on outside sources to keep us distracted.
Yeah,
and
stimulation.
Yes, and then it was like going back to basics. Like, did you ever watch Little House on the Prairies?
Yeah, years ago with
Yeah.
maybe I'm getting it mixed up with the Medicine Woman, but I think I have. Yeah,
but it's similar, and I felt like, wow, this is what it's like, huh? With that, I mean, thank God we have air conditioning, like electricity. But it was like 6 o'clock. I was done work. I couldn't work anymore, and I was like, so what's next?
Yeah. But have you re-entered, because we're still in pretty much lockdown, so I've been out to the mall once or twice, and I go back in and I feel like I'm having this sensory overload because I'm just not used to it. And then the malls aren't busy, everybody has their face masks on, so it's not what we're used to there. But even for me now, it feels like this real, whoa, who are all these people? What are they doing? Things are moving fast. I don't know. It's like I have to re-enter society now.
Yeah, we went through that back in end of April, May, when things started opening up. I was pretty risk averse initially, even when I came back from the Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year. And I was so thankful that I actually had a chance to go to Toronto. And I almost wanted to reschedule and tell them that I was going to come and visit them in June. And I came back and I just bunkered down. Like I only went to meetings that were work related, and anything else I was like, I'll see you after this is over. But obviously it's not over.
Yeah.
And people here were pretty diligent. Like, even if they didn't like it, you had to do it. So we've been fortunate enough that we were able to open up, and we're still operating. And but this whole pandemic is also a realization of how globalization, the impact, like you cannot, it's not singular. It's a ripple effect. And
completely.
And how
it makes things like tax and borders and visas, it makes them all seem so arbitrary now, because you do realize that all of those things are imaginary, of some kind of line where the virus doesn't care, it crosses it without question. So
they don't discriminate, that's for sure. The virus does not discriminate.
Yeah.
So
I would love to wrap up, and I'm just so conscious of your time, but I've really enjoyed just discussing and just hearing from the heart of a fellow female founder. It's not an easy journey, and just hearing and reflecting on your story, it's I actually feel like there's there's a toughness to us, to our tribe, and some battle scars. I would definitely say none of us come through unscathed, but I do definitely believe that we're forging something new. It's almost like there's a new sector, a new concept, a new way of, like, there is a pioneering element to this, and there's always some kind of detriment of being a pioneer. Being that I hope that the female founders who come after us, have at least one more pavement piece in their pathway. So silver lining again. So I'd love to ask you these rapid fire questions.
Okay. How many
the
are
biggest
there?
win I've had in my career so far was
Launching Soul Story Soul.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Definitely a win.
Yeah.
I do my best work when
I'm healthy. And when I'm healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, emotionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And do you call that balance? I know I hear different people who have a different relationship with that word.
Easy said than done. I mean, you're a mother, a wife, and you have, friends and colleagues and staff to manage. So balance, I'm sure, is not, no.
No, it's not a word that I'm familiar with, but some people seem to strive towards it, but the most high-performing people I've ever met threw it out the window. It just seems like a funny aspiration.
Yeah. When people tell me, you need to have a better balance, I'm like,
by whose
sure.
standard? Yeah.
Theoretically, I would love that. But in reality, easy said than done. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that just reflects on like how I'm trying to manage my energy like that. That's the best I can do.
Yeah. At any given moment. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
The person I most want to be proud of me is
myself.
I'm so glad you said that. As soon as I asked the question, I was like, come on.
I have just learned that.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's so true. Like, I have just learned to realize that I should just do things to be proud of myself as to, have or look for others to be proud of me. And at least, especially because I'm from an immigrant family, everything was very results oriented. And my mother, I really wanted to make my mother happy and proud. And I realized, like, she is proud of me, but I need to be proud of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear it. I'm sure it's for most people, I think even just having that on the radar is fantastic, but I'm sure there's a journey of, because high performing people, there's continuously some next hurdle to achieve, or exactly. But being proud of at least the things that you have accomplished. I think even if I stopped right now and never achieved anything ever again, I've already surpassed my wildest dreams as a 15, 18-year-old. I probably never thought I'd do any of this. So
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just giving that person some credit. And so the final question, my gift to the next guest is?
Enjoy this time. Enjoy this time sharing your story and interacting with you, Alex. Yeah, it's been a wonderful. I'm not a morning person, and I'm just in such good spirits after having this, time together with you, and sharing your story and hoping that your story will add value to someone else or give them like some sort of hope for them to keep going.
Yeah.
And find solutions. Yeah, because it's a trying time. And it'll definitely be something that's memorable. Like we won't forget it. But yes, enjoy it. Share your story, and hopefully we can add value.
Fantastic. Yeah, 2020 will be going down in the history books, that's for sure. But I absolutely feel like the things that you've shared today, they've had value for me. And I always do this podcast selfishly. So, thank you. You've achieved, your objective, but I completely believe that there are so many women out there who are either considering, do I leave a corporate career and try something new, or they're already founders and they're thinking, okay, am I doing this alone? What's my path? Or maybe they come from immigrant families and they're thinking, is this just unique to me? And so many of the themes that you hit on and touched on, I think will resonate for other people. So it's a pleasure
I do want to cover one thing before we go.
Please. Yeah.
And it's quite personal actually. But I really want, when you said immigrant, I think I have wasted some time in my own self-doubt and my insecurities. And one of the questions I had that was lingering for actually on and off for a few years was, was I dreaming too big? Was I like, how dare you? To myself, how dare you dream for something big when you had a nice life, working in finance and living in a developing country with a universal health care. How dare you leave that? How dare you leave all that and pursue something and try to compete with multi-billion-dollar companies? How dare you? And that was something that I had to overcome, especially during this, resurfaced during COVID lockdown this year. And I have now come to accept that, yeah, I'm going to take that risk. And I dared. I took that leap of faith. And other women out there who are from immigrant descent or from, underprivileged social economically, they didn't have the same equal opportunities. Don't let that be, don't hold that back. Don't let that hold you back.
Yeah. Did you feel like you needed to be more grateful for the things that you did have in your hands, and that was, how can you risk these things when your mum and your grandmother, would have yearned for them so much, I'm sure.
And then my mother and I had these like really heated conversations about it, because she was like, we took that risk and we came to a foreign country. Like, why do you want to do the same? It was really hard. Yeah. And then it was almost like, am I expecting too much of my life? Am I being greedy? Like, it's not just monetary greed, but like just life fulfillment, ambition, determination. Yeah.
Did she come to understand your choice then?
100%. Yeah. She saw the change in me. Yeah. My drive, my passion, and
that's so fortunate. I mean, it's good to know that she could be honest with you in those first moments to express her fear, and her misunderstanding about like, how could you reverse, the decisions that we made to get here by going in the other direction. Literally, there's a physical journey to it, but to know that she's come to understand and support you, and hopefully that was part of your journey as well, as you said, most importantly, being proud of yourself and daring. I really like the boldness of just, if not you, who else?
Exactly. And
so it might as well be you.
And I did talk to a Vietnamese American, and a few months ago, and I told her like what I was going through, and she's like, "That's what's holding me back. Thank you for sharing." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so I'm not the only like insecure person out there."
You're definitely not. Trust me.
With self-doubt. So I was like, all right. And then, so that's why I wanted to add that in the end. Like, sorry, I just remembered when you said immigrant, I was like, yes, I need to mention this, because for all those,
Well, let's add that as a gift. It's not just to the next guest, but to everybody out there. It's the gift of feeling like you can dare to go wherever your instinct and your own bravery takes you. Find the edges of your own bravery. as
Yeah.
opposed to having these limitations. It's yeah, I think that's a what a blessing to know that you have hit on something that had meaning for someone else. Like, that's just such a lucky thing. I mean, it's good for you to know it in yourself as well, but it's to know that you have impacted somebody else's thinking or decision, or even just the way they weigh up their consideration. Like, so powerful. So kudos
Well,
to you.
thank you
Well,
so much, Alex.
absolutely. Thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking and getting to know your story. Yeah, and I hope this is the beginning of understanding the rest of the story, where it goes from here.
Yes, let's see how things unfold for all of us. But
Exactly. I know. All right. Well, thank you. So The Real Work has been hosted today by me, Alex Lamb, and it wouldn't be possible without the contributions of our team here at Lantern Rouge. Production support is managed by Mark Hayes, and that's it for now. So we'll see you at work. Thank you.